Shalom, Kala, Yahweh, Bashem, Yahushai, Bashem, Kodash. Double honors my teachers, the apostles and elders of Great Millstone. Peace and mercy to the elect, with the house of David reborn again in this generation. And Shalom to the 130 Yasharallah, who today are known as the Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans, who before losing their true heritage were known as and still are the true Hebrew Israelites of the Holy Bible. In today's lesson, we're going to talk about the real deal about what's going on in Afghanistan. But let's read this first. This is Revelations 11 and 14. The second woe is past, and behold, the third woe cometh quickly. Now, John, the Revelator, in his vision, had been shown visions of the 3 world wars, or at that time, the 2 world wars, and he was seeing the 3rd world war coming upon humanity very quickly, right? And you see, just as he's seen it in a vision, we are living it out in our lives, right? The things that you are hearing about Afghanistan and all these other things going on over there in the Middle East, they are all small aspects of the world getting itself ready to go into the 3rd World War, which will basically be the end of this world, right? It will usher in the second coming of the Messiah, right? In fact, the Messiah will show up before World War III takes place, right? So after he beams the elect plus 1/3 of Israel, that being the Negro, Latino, and Native Americans up, that's when World War III will commence, and soon to follow the nuclear war, right, which will end in the annihilation of America and the Western powers. But again, before we get to that point, what we are living through now, including the events going on over in Afghanistan, are all part of the plan, right? Part of Esau's plan to get the world to that point of World War III, okay? But we're going to go through this a little bit, and I'll break it down to show you that these devils have been planning this out this whole time, which all in all is simply just they're fulfilling the work of the Lord. So let's read this article real quick. It says, U.S. troops call it World War Z. Shocking new images capture post-apocalyptic scene outside Kabul airport. And then we'll just... So these people here are trying to get out of Afghanistan because they've basically been, they're wading through, by the way, a trench of basically sewage, man. This is basically piss, water, and shit, okay? It says, Afghans stand knee-deep in sewage outside Kabul airport, waving their papers and begging to be let in as the Taliban now control all routes to the main gates. You see, these are the people who have in some way or another helped the Americans over the last 20 years. Right? They are either helpers or families of the helpers who know that they're going to be killed if they stay in Afghanistan. Right? This is what they've been reduced to try to get out of America. Here's some other images. Right, these people are trying to get into the airport, but what's happening is that the Taliban, as they now control outside of the airport, they're basically getting people away from, you can see this guy here, he's shooting a gun, right? He shoots it again behind his back like an idiot. Right, so these are the Taliban now securing their area, right? This guy here.
Afghan cannot come.
These are the Taliban here who have now basically cleared out all the Afghanistans from trying to go into the gates of the Kabul airport, and they're protecting these gates entries into the airport. And that's also why you're seeing those Afghanistan citizens going through the waste dump, man, because the Taliban have closed down the gates. Right, here's another gate that was closed down. You just see how horrible it looks, man. This is where people were waiting to be let in, right? But the reason I'm showing you all this is because all this is it's a result. It's a byproduct of what these devils at the top, these Edomites who run this world, right? The so-called Caucasian race, right? Namely the rulers of this world right now, the top kings, the elite bankers, the people who really run the world, right? This is all part of their agenda. And I'm not, and they didn't purposely plan to have these Afghanistan people, basically fleeing for their lives and going through sewages. But no, their ultimate plan was to go into Afghanistan, secure the Middle East, and ultimately make an area for the so-called fake Jews over there in Israel to give them a bigger land known as the Greater Israel Project. And also, it was to build up the terrorist threat over in the Middle East, right? Because you see, when we first got, or when I say we, I mean America, when America first got into Afghanistan, these are the Taliban that they encountered, right? Basically untrained and unhoned warriors, right? At least in the disciplines of weaponry, right? These men had been battle hardened because they basically have been fighting wars against the Soviet Union and before them, other nations who had tried to come into to Afghanistan to conquer it. That being said, when America came in, they were basically no match for the Americans, and they were quickly subdued, right? And America was able to control and dominate Afghanistan as long as it kept its military presence in there, okay? Now, that being said, since the Americans have left in a hasty retreat, right? They've the Taliban who has come onto the scene are a little different. Okay, they are basically trained or U.S. trained people, right? Now, one thing is I want you to understand that a lot of the people that were kept in Guantanamo Bay down there in Cuba as U.S. prisoners, right? They made deals with the American government, right? With Esau, right? Ishmael, or Elam in this case, because that's Afghanistan, are actually Elamites. They're a mixture between Indians and Iranians, right? They made, and also Ishmaelites, right? They made deals with America, right? To get back their country, but to ultimately be in subjection to the Americans, right? Now, that being said, I'm guessing that the American government didn't believe that the Taliban was going to take over so quickly. In fact, they had said that they believed it was going to be a few months until they were able to overwhelm the Afghanistan police and military forces, right? But to everybody's surprise, they took over in about 2 weeks, right? And what you're seeing here are men who are not the same Taliban that we encountered when America first went in there, right? These are Taliban who have been trained. Just look at their fingers, right? And for you people out there who don't understand guns and all that stuff, this right here, by having your finger not on the trigger, is known as trigger discipline, right? You have to be trained to do this naturally, because naturally you do what these people are doing here. You put your finger on the trigger, right? And that is very unprofessional, very dangerous, very unhoned, okay? But this is what people who are in their untrained natural state will do. Now, that being said, what besides getting the training from the American forces, what else have these Taliban been given? Well, let's take a look. Just today was released an infographic showing the gear that was left to the Taliban in one piece, okay? Now, I have friends who have come from the military, and they explained to me that before they'll leave a downed plane, a downed helicopter, piece of equipment, they will destroy it. They will sabotage it. They will burn it. They will explode it, so that way it does not fall into the hands of the enemy. Okay. Now, yes, these weapons here, which let's go and take a look at it, man. These were intended for the police forces and the Afghan military, right? But now, right, through miraculous means and circumstances, now the Taliban is in possession of all this. Okay, this is everything that the Taliban now has their hands on, plus all the other things that they've shown in videos, from the piles of money to all the weapons not shown here, right? The Taliban, for the most part, have now been militarized and weaponized by the U.S. forces, okay? Now, why do I bring this up? Why is this biblical? Well, you got to understand that these devils, these Edomites, the so-called Caucasian race, the ones who are seeking to rule the entire world in an outright maneuver known as the New World Order, who already run the world in a covert method, right, through their banks and their laws and all that stuff, and through their military power, they're now seeking to take full control and outright own the world and the people in it, right? And this is all by plan. Let's go and read the part that I had mentioned earlier, right? You see, the man here on your right, his name is Albert Pike. He is a 33-degree Freemason, right? He is also a fairly popular man amongst the U.S. government. In fact, if you go to Washington, D.C., you'll see a large bronze statue in his honor, I believe close to the Senate House. The apostles actually did a lesson years back at his statue, right? He's also buried in the bot underneath the Freemason Hall in Washington, D.C. This guy here, he's a top witch, okay? And in this letter that he had written to this Italian politician, Giuseppe Mazzini, he had explained to Giuseppe in an attempt to get Giuseppe to fall in line with the Freemason, program. He was explaining to him how they were going to basically initiate 3 world wars, which would eventually end up in them owning and ruling the entire world. Now, if you want to go and read the section about the First World War or the Second World War, go ahead and pause the video now and read it. It basically explains exactly how World War I and World War II took place. But I want to focus on this last section, right? This last section that explains how the Third World War will come to be enacted, and also how this will ultimately conclude their maneuver in controlling the whole world. Let's go and read this now. It says, the Third World War must be fomented by taking advantage of the differences caused by the agentur of the Illuminati between the political Zionists, right, the so-called Israelis, and the leader of the Islamic world, right? Basically, your Taliban, right? Your jihadists, okay? The war must be conducted in such a way that Islam, Muslim Arabic world, and political Zionism, the state of Israel, mutually destroy each other. Meanwhile, the other nations, once more divided on this issue, will be constrained to fight to the point of complete physical, moral, spiritual, and economical exhaustion. We shall unleash the nihilist and the atheist. We shall provoke a formidable social cataclysm which in all its horror will show clearly that to the nations that the effects of absolute atheism, origin of savagery, and of the most bloody turmoil, then everywhere the citizens obliged to defend themselves against the world minorities of revolutionaries will exterminate those destroyers of civilization, and the multitude disillusioned with Christianity, whose deistic spirits will from that moment be without compass or direction, anxious for an ideal, but without knowing where to render its adoration, will receive the true light through the universal manifestation of the pure doctrine of Lucifer, brought finally out in the public view. This manifestation will result from the general reactionary movement, which will follow the destruction of Christianity and atheism, both conquered and exterminated at the same time. Written by Albert Pike, August 15th, 1871. So right here, you can see how Albert Pike explained how they're basically going to put the Israelis against the Arabs, right? And they're gonna continue to agitate both of them, right? And this is why we're seeing Israel fighting with the Syrians, fighting with the Iranians, right? Just look at what's going on today. It was released, it said Israel to accelerate covert actions against Iran. Black budget earmarked IDF chief, right? So these devils here, they're already planning to carry out secret missions to destroy Iran, right? But that's spiritual, because you see their actions ultimately are going to lead to this. But see, this is Jeremiah 50 and 45. Therefore, hear ye the counsel of Yahweh Bashim Shai, that he hath taken against Babylon, and his purpose that he hath purposed against the land of the Chaldeans, America. Surely the least of the flock shall draw them out. Surely he shall make their habitation desolate with them. Right? The least of the flock in this case here, in this scripture, is referring to the Israelis, right? The smallest tribe of the so-called Caucasian race. Okay, they are the top tribe known as Amalek amongst the Caucasians. Right? They are themselves are what you would call Caucasians, but they identify as so-called Jews, but they are not the true Jews. They're not the biblical Jews, right? They are Jewish as pertaining to. The true Jews are the so-called Negroes. Now, that being said, just like it tells you here in the scripture, man, that the Third World War will come with the Israelis and the Arabs going at each other's necks, right? But you see, the Lord is causing this ultimately, right? Even though it's these devils here believing that they're doing the work of their master Lucifer, Satan, right? Because they themselves consider themselves Lucifer, right? The light bearers, but they're not. They only have an artificial light. The true light bearers are us, the Israelites, right? We are the true Lucifers because we have the true light, the light of the Bible. Now, like I said, right, these devils are basically provoking the Israelis and the Iranians and all the other Arab nations to basically fight against each other, right? They're the ones who are doing all these underhanded deeds. They're the ones in charge of the Mossad, the CIA, the people who are working the dissidents amongst the citizenry of these countries, so that way they can start rebellions and seditions and ultimately start these wars. And this is all to get these devils to fight against each other, man. And what are they doing here in Babylon the Great? Well, they're basically have set up a system so that way we, as a citizens here, we are physically, morally, spiritually, and economically exhausted, right? The way that they're collapsing this economy, the way that they are destroying the morals of the United States by bringing all this, alphabet game BS, right? All these horrible, reading, drag queens reading to children in libraries, the love is love, pedophilia thing going on right now, man. The spiritual destruction of the churches, man, showing how they're all corrupt and child molesters, right? All these things, man, are all parts of them trying to wear down the people, man. That way, they'll be able to pounce on people, man. Right here where it says bringing the nihilists, that's your Black Lives Matters, your Antifa, the atheists, that's all that, those fake, social groups, man, that are considered the minority, right? And what is this going to ultimately do, man? It's going to make people basically rise up against them and destroy these groups, man. And not only are they going to destroy these these nihilists, these atheist groups, right? The BLM, your Antifa, your Proud Boys, all these people who are caught up in a trap, thinking that they're going to do something, right? But simply, realistically, they are just basically human targets meant to be the receivers of the outburst of the citizenry here in America, at least according to these devils' plans, man. And once they get that going on, man, they're also going to be disillusioned with Christianity, man. Why do you think these devils let these pastors get so rich? Why do you think they give them an opportunity to make all that money? Well, because they gotta morally exhaust us, and they gotta be so that way we're disillusioned with Christianity, right? And why is all this, man? Why do they do this? Well, it's the same reason why when you hear about all this crazy shit going on, all the corruption of these churches, right? All the scandals you hear that preachers are caught up in, and then all of a sudden in some sort of fucking comic, some smart ass remark, you see like the Church of Satan or the Church of Lucifer or some atheist asshole, or come through with some sort of Luciferian doctrine or quote talking about how, making it seem like being a Luciferian isn't that bad, right? You have assholes like Jay-Z out there wearing "Do As Thou Wilt" shirts, devils like Beyonce and Rihanna, pushing the whole 666 hand eye Illuminati symbol, man, right? Getting our people right for the picking to take on the doctrine of Lucifer, man. See, this is all the plan in to bring forth the New World Order. And these devils are quiet about it, man. They write about it in their books. But the thing is, man, is like, if you want to hide something from an Israelite, a Negro, Latino, Native American, you put it in a book. But you see, the Lord has given us spirits, so that way we go and we research this and we find this stuff, man. And that's why these devils now that used to be hidden, right, now they're being revealed. Like this devil here, David Spangler. He's a big UN bigwig, man. This is what he wrote. He says, "No one will enter the New World Order unless he or she make a pledge to worship Lucifer. No one will enter the New Age unless he will take a Luciferian initiation." And what is that Luciferian initiation? That's taking the mark of the beast, right? Who is the beast? These devils, man, their mark, right? Esau, the Edomites, they are the beast, okay? That has risen from a deceiver in the Garden of Eden to a whole nation who's brought destruction upon the world, right? They are the destroyers of the earth, right? Like the scripture says, man, the Lord is going to destroy them who destroy the earth. Man, he's talking about these so-called Caucasians, man. This is Joel 2:20. "But I will remove far off from you the northern army, and I will drive him into a land barren and desolate, and with his face towards the east sea, and his hinder part towards the utmost sea. And his stink shall come up, and his ill savor shall come up, because he hath done great things." Right? And this is talking about how the Lord ultimately is going to make events so bad there in the Middle East that he's going to draw the U.S. Army, or Salaki, the U.S. military, back over there to the Middle East, man. And he's going to set them down there in Saudi Arabia, right? The Arab Peninsula, right? And this is what we're seeing now, man. Now that we are now left, right, and with all that military equipment there, so either they left out there to build up the Arabs so that way the Arabs can fight against the Israelis, or it's going to be a justification for the U.S. military to go back to reclaim that equipment so it doesn't fall into terroristic hands. But either way, however this plays out, the Lord is behind it, man. The Lord is doing it, so that way ultimately he draws the American military back to the Middle East along with all these other nations that are already there. So that way World War III will play out. This is 2 Corinthians 2:11. "Least Satan should get an advantage of us, for we are not ignorant of his devices." So you see, all these things that are playing out, people, they're all the work of Satan, right? And him trying to maneuver on the chessboard, man. You see, all these things, all this chaos he's creating in the world is all part of his agenda. Order out of chaos. Okay, this is what's going on, man. And this should be proof to you that we are close to the end of the world. Okay, this is why you shouldn't, try to be going along with what these devils are doing, man. You shouldn't be trying to get that jab so you can keep your job. No, man, you need to prepare yourself so that way you could be ready for when the Lord comes back, man, because things are playing out now that you need to start getting yourself ready for. So hopefully this video was edifying. Until next time, I want to give all praises to Yahweh, Ba'Shem Yahushai, Ba'Shem Ruach Kodesh, double honors my teachers, the apostles and elders of Great Millstone. Peace and mercy to the elect. Shalom.